Good evening, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White. I am your host, Charles King. We do have a special guest today. That guest is Mr. Tiran Jackson. But before we get into the show, let me just reiterate some points from yesterday. I think it's very important that we all know that we are in an election year. And so, with this being in an election year, it is very important that each and every individual in all communities of all ethnicities, please get out and vote. Your vote counts. Please do not be deceived. Do not be told anything that's making you believe that your vote does not count. Please vote. Despite what people died for all of us to have these rights to vote, people need to vote because what's important is that freedom and democracy is at stake. And so, what's so important about that is the wonderful show we had yesterday, but then also the show that we're going to have tonight, here in just a short minute, is basically running along the same parallels that people are having negative effects as to what is happening in society today. And so it is very important that each and every individual knows one thing: nobody's telling you who to vote for, just vote. Just vote. Please vote. I'm asking you guys to please vote. And so, Um, with that being said, I am going to move on, and I am going to tell you guys about the guest that we have coming on today. Um, and he'll tell you a whole lot about his story and the things that are happening with him today and why he has become a motivational speaker. Um, our guest tonight, he brings a unique perspective to the table. We're thrilled to have motivational speaker and mental health advocate Tiran Jackson joining us on the show tonight. Let me tell you guys a little bit about Tiran. Tiran Jackson is a dynamic speaker, author, and visionary entrepreneur. Isn't just a survivor, he's a thriver. His own profound journey, marked by personal tragedy, loss, and triumphant resilience, is a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will to overcome. Starting his career as an engineer, Tehran was on the path to success, but life had other plans. Through transformational experiences, he discovered his true purpose, inspiring others to find their own path. Tehran's authenticity and vulnerability now serve as guiding lights for those seeking resilience, courage, and strength. Today, he doesn't just inspire, he empowers. Tehran's mission is to help you rediscover your authentic self, embrace your vulnerabilities, and set forth boldly toward your dreams. Connect with Tehran and embark on your own journey of resilience at rebornresilient.com. Now, ladies and gentlemen, um, just a few other things here before we get to our guest tonight. Um, I want you to know that I instantaneously, when I ran across Tehran's, um, profile on LinkedIn, um, I read that profile and that profile was very touching to me. That profile had things going on in it that, you know, um, it was just very touching. The things that I read in his bio and the story that he's going to share with you guys, as well as why it's so important for him to be a motivational speaker, these are things that are going to really um give you guys some fruit for thought, that's going to be thought provoking enough to have you just thinking about, are you living to your full potential? What are the things can you do? If your back was against a wall and you had to make a choice, how would you know which choice would be the wise choice? If you were to lose limbs, how would you feel? If you was to have problems with any of your senses, like the hearing, the eyes, maybe you lost the eye, you went blind in an eye, you couldn't smell, you couldn't taste, you couldn't feel. How would you bounce back from that? And these are some of the things that when we find strong individuals like Tehran, it makes a difference, for everything that's at this point. And when I say at this point, that is what life is serving us up right now. Right now, he is a true um, living testament to being resilient, being strong, not giving up, and just being a powerful, powerful young man. I think he sets examples for individuals and people, um, to bring them to a place of making them feeling totally, totally complete. He has added so many things, or so much value to what's happening in life. It's just, oh wow. This is about to be a very good show, just like the one last night. This one's going to be a really good show because we're going to be embarking on situations that's unbeknownst to a lot of us. A lot of us don't know what it is to be missing a limb, or to not have any of our senses. A lot of us are not in that category. And so, since we're not in that category, it's one of the things that's hard to figure. But we will move into the show. And, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you all to Tiran Jackson. Welcome to
Hey,
the
good
show.
afternoon. Good
Welcome to the
afternoon. Good
show.
afternoon, CZ. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing just excellent. What about yourself?
Look, I'm doing great. Doing great.
Well,
Doing
that's
great. So,
wonderful, and I welcome to the show.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I apologize for being a little late, but better late than never. So, uh, hopefully it's all good.
Yes, sir. It's all good. I just read you know, your short bio. Is there anything else you'd like for the audience to know as to some things about yourself before we dive into the show?
A couple of things. Couple of things. I am someone who has gone through a tremendous transformation, and you'll see some of that as I talk through um, how how I've gotten to where I am now and some of the things that are most important to me now. And that I realize that we go through different transformations in life. I like to use the analogy about, how a caterpillar goes through its cocoon and through its stages to come out as a butterfly. It can be completely different than where they started. I think my journey, and I think a lot of people, their journey does not start off the way that they anticipate or expect, but we go through things and life changes us. And sometimes we get this greater sense of awareness of who we are, where we need to be, and where we go as a result of some of what we go through. So I think I'm a prime example of that, but I know that there are many others out there who may not realize the level of transformation that they're going through to become better, greater versions of themselves. And so I think that just having that understanding and awareness that, we are constantly growing, constantly changing, and being cognizant of that, I think is very, very important. Is a part of who I am.
That's a wonderful thing. So if you can like just let's just dive right into this, and can you share with our listeners a bit about your journey to becoming a motivational speaker?
So okay, great. First off, I start off by telling people I wasn't supposed to be here, and I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing now, or at least that's what I thought. I started out my career as an engineer. I got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, a master's in systems engineering, and went back and got an MBA thinking that that was going to all help me to move further and deeper into my knowledge and into my expertise as being an engineer. I worked for Rolls-Royce, GE, for some major companies doing some big major things. But if I take you guys back a couple years ago, 2018 is when my life threw me a curveball. My life, it changed. At that point in time, my wife Malika, she and I, we were getting ready to celebrate a momentous occasion. We were getting ready to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary, and we thought we were going to do something different. Now, she was a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion for a major Fortune 500 company, and so she was dealing with the pressures and stresses of what was going on in her life as she was just transitioning into that role. For me, I was going through some of the growing pains as a manager, but I knew my space. I knew where I was expert at, and what we were realizing was that one week she would be gone for a week because she had to do what she needed to do in Chicago for her company, and then she would come back, and then I would schedule my trips around her time. So we were both very busy, but this is what people go through when they're ambitious, when they're driving, when they're trying to reach, certain goals in life. But we knew that we had this opportunity together to spend time on vacation and celebrate our anniversary, and that was going to be a time for us to really be able to connect with one another and to unwind and relax a little bit. We decided we were going to take this 5-day trip to the Bahamas, stay at this all-inclusive plush resort, and just be able to bring in our 15th anniversary the right way. So we go to the Bahamas. The day before we left, I dropped our son off with his aunt and uncle and told him I'll be back in a week to pick you up. And he was great. He was fine. He was going to terrorize his aunts and uncles and chase their dog around and eat ice cream and stay up late at night and all of these other things that he wouldn't get to do if he was at home with us. So he was good. And so we left, went to the Bahamas, and the first 2 days were wonderful. We had time at the beach, some fruity drinks, time at the pool. We got to eat some delicious meals. Everything was great. We got to really enjoy taking a break from what life was showing us at that point in time. But then on the third day that we were there, we decided we were going to do something a little more adventurous. We were going to leave the resort and go on an excursion. Now, people do this all the time where you travel and you go and you want to get off the resort. You want to see what else the island has to offer. So we thought this is something that we would do that morning. And we had a decision to make. And we had a decision between going on a half-day tour, which is going to be 4 hours, or doing a full-day tour, which is going to pretty much be the whole day. And Malika and I talked about it the day before. We said, okay, we're going to do this half-day tour because I thought I was going to get to come back and play golf that afternoon, and she wanted to go to the spa. So we thought, okay, this is a good compromise. We're going to do this half-day tour, going to get out, see that, and still be able to do some of the things we still wanted to do while we were still there on vacation. So we wake up that morning. Everything is great. Go eat breakfast. We get to the edge of the resort. A bus comes and picks us up. and along with a couple other couples, and we go to a couple of different resorts to pick up other people. And we get to this marina at about 8:40 in the morning, check in 8:45, we're through, and we have this this walk we have to take down this long pier. On the left side was the half-day tour, on the right side was the full day. We got on the boat for the half-day tour. Didn't think anything of it. 9 o'clock, the boat takes off. Everything seems fine. But 5 minutes into that ride, my life changes forever. 5 minutes of the ride, the boat explodes. Unbeknownst to us, we were sitting above a fuel tank, and there was a fuel leak emanating from that fuel tank. And something caused a spark, and I find myself waking up face down on the surface of this burning boat. Now, when I finally came to, I could see passengers on that second boat that wasn't too far away from us, and they're yelling to me, "Get off the boat, get off the boat, get off the boat." And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what's happened. I'm in shock. But I try to push myself up, but I crumble. I try to push myself up again, but I didn't realize my collarbone was broken in 4 places. And so the only thing I could do was reach my right hand out, put my fingertips in the ridges on the surface of that boat, and drag myself away from the flames. Drag my body until I pass out again. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but I looked down and I could see my left foot just dangling, my ankle bone out, blood gushing out. So I'm messed up pretty bad, and I don't know where my wife is. Finally, I get close to the edge of the boat, and some of the other passengers from that second boat, they pulled me off, and I'm grateful that they did, because about 2 minutes after they got me off, the second fuel tank exploded on that boat. I wouldn't be here if it would have taken a little bit longer. Now, fast forward, Malika was thrown into the ocean in a different direction. And there was a third boat that picked her and one other passenger up. And they took them to shore. An ambulance got to them and took them to a clinic. I happened to go in a different direction, and I ended up having to be put on the back of a pickup truck on a piece of plywood, carried by a civilian to this clinic. And when they get me to this clinic, they put me on a stretcher and they wheel me in. And that's the first time I hear Malika. I could hear her moans, her yells, her screams. She's in agony. And I'm thinking to myself, what can I do for my wife? I'm helpless. I can't do anything. There happens to be one doctor at this clinic. And after he checks on Malika and checks on this other passenger, he finally comes to me. And I ask him, how is my wife? He tells me, we got to send you to the good hospital. We can't treat you here. You and this other passenger are going to go to this other hospital, and your wife will come later. And so I'm thinking to myself that my wife must not be hurt as bad as I am. But I didn't realize that at the time. What they were trying to do was to make sure I wasn't aware of the fact that she actually died at that clinic. And they didn't want me to know that before they sent me to this good hospital. I get to the hospital. I'm asking the doctors, okay, what about my wife? Is she on her way here yet? They put me in the surgery. They try to reattach what's left of my left foot to my ankle, to my leg. And when I wake up from surgery, that's when they finally break the news to me. This is about 6 hours after the accident. They said, Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it. I found myself crying myself to sleep that night because I'm still in shock as to what happened. The next morning, I wake up and I know I have to call our son. He was 12 years old at the time, and tell him over the phone, son, your mom's never coming home. And have to hear him on the other end, understand that he doesn't know everything that happened, but I could hear his pain and understand that suffering that he's going through. I just broke my son's heart by telling him that the only woman he was ever close to is never coming back. And then later that same afternoon, as I said, what they tried to do was reattach what was left of my foot to my leg. Well, my foot was infected, and the infection was starting to go through my body. So as I laid there, I could see the EKG monitor over my head and see all of my vital signs go from green to yellow to red. And it's at that point that I started coming to grips with the fact that the next time I close my eyes was going to be the last time I close my eyes. And I've already broken my son's heart, telling him that your mom is no longer here. And this is going to be my last day being here as well. And so I started to realize I was in the truest state of despair you could imagine, broken physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, mad at God for this having to happen. Why did this have to happen to us? and I went to sleep thinking that I was not going to wake up again. They stopped actually trying to stop the infection and just were giving me tramadol to deal with the pain so it wouldn't be as painful of a death. Now, a lot of things were happening in the background that I wasn't fully aware of at the time, but I did wake up that next morning. And when I woke up, I was being pretty much confiscated from that hospital. I was being taken and flown to a level 1 trauma unit here in the US, where they basically said they were going to do whatever they could to make sure I could still survive. Now, I had a broken right foot, 3rd-degree burns on my right leg, a fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, broken collarbone. And I've been in and out of consciousness 5 times from the time that the accident happened to the time they got me to the hospital. And so I was going through a lot. But when they got me at that level 1 trauma unit facility, they told my family who had flown down that they had to do whatever they could to preserve my life. And what they did is I went to surgery and I wake up and my left leg below the knee is missing. They had to amputate my leg for me to survive. Over the course of the next 5 days, I had to go through 9 different surgeries just to start putting the physical pieces of me back together. But as I was going through that, there was a bigger message that was being shared with me. And for those who are spiritual, God was speaking to me as clear as day. And as I was starting to understand, he told me a couple of things. He told me that Malika had lived a life that she was supposed to live, and it was time for her to come home. He told me that if he wanted to, he could have taken me 3 different times. He could have taken me when that boat exploded. He could have taken me when my vital signs went from green to yellow to red. He could have taken me when I went in and I was in ICU the day before after going through multiple surgeries, and I was still unstable. But he kept me here for a reason. He also has told me this one consistent thing: be resilient. Be resilient. That the obstacles that you've overcome just to still be here are nothing compared to the obstacles you're going to have to face moving forward. And that you're intended to not just survive, but to thrive. And if you want to thrive, you have to make that choice. And that choice is to choose to be resilient. And so that stuck with me as I was starting to get the awareness as to what was going on and trying to figure out really what life was going to look like. Because he also said clearly to me that your normal that you're used to is not going to be the normal that you're going to have moving forward. And the sooner you get to this place of accepting that your life is going to be different, the better off you're going to be with accepting what's to come. And so really, CZ, that was when it started happening. That was when the realization that this was going to be a transformation of who I really was really starting to come out. And it wasn't until I was starting to go through these phases of recovery after the accident and regaining, who I was to become emotionally from a strength, from a mental standpoint, and realizing how to move forward when you're dealing with adversity in order to regain control of life again, is when I realized that, okay, there is a lesson to be learned in all of this. Now, there was still some more later that led to me becoming a speaker, because I still didn't think that that was where this was going to take me. But about 8 months after the accident, I started doing a lot of different things. They told me it'd take me 10 months to start walking again with a prosthetic. And if I did, it would be awkward. If you saw me, you would never know that I had a prosthetic if I had pants on. I ran 5Ks, learned to swim with one leg, did a lot of these things. I was walking in 4 months. And I just kept going and going and getting these small wins and realizing I could do things that I wasn't even trying to do before, led me to being able to realize that there is no limit to what we can actually accomplish. But it was probably about 8 months after the accident where someone actually asked me to come and speak at a life insurance conference. And that was really the first time that I actually shared what I went through. And I'll be honest, that was probably the worst talk I'd ever given in my life, or at least so I felt, because I was still emotionally I wasn't healed yet. But I realized in doing that, so many people came to me saying, you changed my perspective on life and how to overcome when adversity strikes. And so that's where it started. And then from there, I ended up getting asked to speak a couple of times again. And before I knew it, I realized that this was the purpose for me. That despite whatever pain I'd gone through, it was intended for me to go through it, to be able to give people hope and inspiration when the obstacles seem insurmountable. So,
Well, I tell you, I do believe it was divine intervention when I ran across your profile on LinkedIn.
yeah,
And for me, I think it was really profound because as we talked about this before, it was like that in itself was so much inspiration. And the thing is that, you know, I can't even put words to that because I know how tragic and traumatic that was.
Yeah.
But, just to see you battle all the way back from that, you know, and you come back strong as ever. I mean, not that you've ever been weak, but you come back
No,
stronger.
definitely.
And that's the thing, that's inspirational for a whole bunch of folks. I know it was for me.
Yeah.
And, that's why I think it's so important, not only for you being a motivational speaker, because that's the thing that people need to get motivation from, but all the things that they're going through, and they see that you are a winner and you have that winning story. That's what they need to hear.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree, and I understand. And as I said, sometimes, like you said, people are going through things. So many of us, we let our problems paralyze us, and the things that, and I had to learn this as well. Once you get in that state of paralysis, you're going through this process of. For me, it was severe grief. But these things, they hold you to where you're stuck, and you don't think clearly about how to get out of it. But part of what I learned through realizing what resilience was, and this had to come through, me going through what I experienced, was that part of being resilient was not about regaining what was lost. We're going to have those things that happen to us, and we can't really go back and change those things. Now, it isn't easy in order to move forward, but resilience is about reshaping what still remains of our life. And it's what we do with what still remains is going to dictate our life story. And so there was still a lot of life for me to still be able to manage and live despite what had happened to me. And so I try to make sure and encourage people that, and there's a process to all of this. It isn't just a matter of saying, okay, I got to move forward. I got to do better. It's a mindset. It's emotional. It's being able to have that will, that discipline, and being able to be consistent with the right actions in order to heal yourself, or not even heal yourself, but even because it takes other people as well. There's a element of reliance on having the right people in your life who are going to help you get through some of these battles. And so often we try to do things alone. I was so used to having to being that person that people came to, and for handling my issues by myself or alone, that I had to. It was truly a struggle to learn how to ask for help. And I help coach people on how to be able to do some of these things, because when we think all is lost, we can have a tendency to want to give up. But being able to understand, and this is where the engineer comes out to me, there's a process on how to be able to get from being stuck and paralyzed to actually prospering in the path that you are going down. And so I try to break these things down when I help people, because I realize that a lot of times we just don't know what we need to do or how we're going to move forward when those things happen to us in our life that we aren't prepared for.
So, tell our audience this. What inspired you to focus on mental health issues in your work?
Ooh, so good question. So I tell you this, before any of that happened, I didn't know much about therapy. I had never done it. I didn't think that, so I grew up in a small town, Alabama, and what they thought where I grew up was only crazy people went to get therapy. And so, this was some of the myths that I was battling growing up, and believing and all, or maybe not believing, but still that was what was being said. So I didn't think that mental health was necessarily something I had to actually um, do when I was living what was my normal life before. But I realized that emotional pain that came with losing my rock, my best friend, my wife, the mother of my child, all of this in one, and having to figure out life again after so much change and transition. I was really going through it. I was suffering from depression. I was dealing with anxiety, as I mentioned, the survivor's remorse and the severe grief, as well as PTSD of waking up on that boat. I would have nightmares of that, and I wasn't myself. I couldn't think. I couldn't do anything in the same way that I could. I mentioned earlier, I was an engineer before. I was used to remembering, you know, intricate details and information that I was, that was part of what I was responsible for, and I did well, and I was an expert at. And I went through this period where my short-term memory loss was gone. I had to go through neurological assessments to figure out if I was going to ever get that back. I lost my identity. And when you're going through this where you're losing yourself and you're having these emotional breakdowns, I needed help. And that's what led me to make sure that I started, getting the counseling to understand how to cope with and come through that grieving process, as well as figuring out how I was going to be a single father to my son, how I was going to be able to move forward being a permanently disabled, individual out here. All of these different things were new challenges that I had never experienced before, and I didn't know how to cope with it and to come to terms with it. And that's where the importance of having that mental health and that support to help me learn not just how to deal with those things, but the other thing I had to do was learn who I was again. I had, and this happens with people in situations similar to what I went through. I was so used to what I like to do being what we like to do. So when you got your spouse, you're married, you start to merge and mesh together in ways, and so my identity was linked to hers, and now all of a sudden, here I am by myself. Who am I? What do I like to do? And I had to rediscover who I was again. And so going through this journey of really diving deep into the things that I needed in my life in order to move forward. What were my ambitions? What were my goals? What did I dislike? There were a lot of areas that I had to really tap into that I didn't tap into before that happened. So in going through this journey, it led me to, and it led to the name of my platform, my business called Reborn Resilient. I was pretty much reborn that day that boat explosion occurred, because I had to, I'm a different man in the way that I think, in the way that I operate, in the empathy and compassion that I have for others, and the way that I see things in the world. So, that was just part of my journey. But if it wasn't for the therapy and the counseling and actually diving deep into why I did some of the things that I did before and what changes I needed to make in order to survive afterwards, I wouldn't be the man that I am today.
Oh wow. That is that's a lot. But you know something? Think about this. I mean, well, have you thought about it this way? That you know, you were already, foundationally fit and set to move and to do big things.
Mhm.
But now you're set to do even bigger things and more things. Is that the way you see it?
That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. I tell people that the pain that I went through helped get me to my purpose. And now that I realize that the impact that I can have now is so much greater than what I ever imagined as an engineer and as a husband and father, and doing the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing before. And so, it's definitely created a pathway to be able to touch people and in ways that I never, like I said, thought I would, and being able to not just share this story, but to help people get out of their place of hurt and give them that hope so they can go ahead and be, get the most out of their lives as well.
Wow. How do you approach helping individuals struggling with mental health challenges?
So, so the first thing that I do when I'm talking to people about it is really try to get an understanding of their awareness of where they truly are. And I think a lot of times, we as individuals, we don't give we don't give a true and accurate assessment of ourselves unless we got somebody or some help with that, because we have this image of this is who I'm supposed to be, or I'm not supposed to have these issues, or I'm not going to share these, this stress that I'm dealing with is something that everybody doesn't need to know about. And so what I find is that I talk to a lot of people who don't even realize that they're truly depressed. They think, but part of it is they've been conditioned to be a functional depressive person. And so, and that's one of those things where when you're so used to this type of trauma that's just sitting on you. And look, we're talking about American black and white. We as black people, we have some inherent traumas that, you know, others may not understand, but these are pressures, these are stresses that are going to be on us regardless of what we do and how we think we're going to do it. So I think that's part of what the challenge is with talking to people. And what I tell people is that, you know, all of these things, they have a cumulative effect. They stack up on us. You know, if there might have been some things in your childhood that you didn't address that might be part of the reason why you have issues with relationships or interacting with other people today. And then you take those things, and then you take some of the, you know, challenges and stresses that go through our careers, our jobs. You take some of the family matters that come. All of these things are starting to add up on us. And I use the analogy that, you know, if we're not doing anything about our mental health, we're like that Coke bottle that you're just shaking and shaking and shaking. And you know, what's going to happen is if you don't do anything about it, you're going to pop off. And you're going to have this stuff all over the place. And when you're actually doing something to address and talk and come up with solutions on how to become better as an individual, how to be able to handle and manage that depression, how to handle your anxiety, what you're doing is you're slowly twisting that cap off. You're letting some of that pressure be relieved, and you're getting to a place where it's not going to be as explosive when that happens. So I think the first and most important thing is to have somebody talk through where they are and give them an idea as to what they might be missing, because we don't know where our blind spots truly are most of the time.
So, can you tell me when it comes to these situations when you're actually talking with these individuals, are you doing these in like personal settings, or is it just an open space, calm environments, or how does that work?
So I do a lot of different things. So I'm a certified life coach, and I do work with individuals on a one-on-one basis, depending on how much they think they need to help get from where they are to where they want to be in life. Everywhere we got in life, our mind got there first. We have to visualize, and we have to understand that we got to take the right steps, the actions, and to follow that process in order to better our chances to reach that level of success where we want to get to. But I do that in small group settings, virtually, as well as, like I said, individually. But I also do a lot with corporations, with organizations, and different associations when they're having events. Not only will I actually talk and not just share my story, but share what I call my roadmap to resilience, which helps people identify ways within their life where they can be more resilient based on some of the actions that they're taking today, but also go into some workshop development with groups. And so there is a multitude of ways, but I tell people I embody resilience, and now I want to empower you with resilience, because I think that there's a lot of things that we neglect in life that if we're more resilient, we're not only able to recover and bounce back from it, but we bounce back from it better, as a better version of who we once were. So when you have those skills, you start to look at more like opportunities to grow as opposed to obstacles that you just can't get around.
Okay. Um, so just to add a little bit more in depth to that, this next question, I think is kind of like a little bit deeper into the mental health part of what you do. Can you tell us about a particular impactful moment you've had while working with someone on their mental health journey?
Ooh, trying to think about it without actually giving too many, because it's part of it is I definitely want to make sure that I respect my people that I work with and all.
Right.
But
Confidentiality, that's
yeah,
understandable.
yeah. But really, one of the things that I've done is to be able to help um, the anxiety. I have one client who she is constantly complaining and worried about what the future looks like. And I realized and helped her understand that part of this is because you don't really look and plan ahead in a proper manner that you actually can follow. I think a lot of times people look their vision is so short term, so short focused that they don't, and people fear the future. They fear what may happen in the future. And so having to expand that mindset and have her actually talk through what does not just 3 days from now look like, but 3 weeks and 3 months look like, and
Oh
having
wow.
to figure out how we're gonna sort of model that, and look out for the issues and obstacles that's going to come up, 2 weeks, 2 months from now in advance. It lowered that level of anxiety. And what I realized is, because she had this tendency to be very emotional, because the chaos would lead to, they were served as triggers. Anything that would um, cause her to not operate in the way that she's accustomed to would be a trigger, and she would go off on people, and she would go off on her kids, and she'd wonder why she's having struggles with the relationship. And so it's one of these things that sometimes when we get that clarity and we actually put the effort in trying to predict our future based on what actions we can take in order to get there, it lessens their level of anxiety. And so part of what I try to help people do is is really, like I said, get that clarity, but take the time to figure out where my strengths and weaknesses lie, and what can I do to expound upon my strengths in order to get the best desired outcome in the future. And so this can be within your careers, this can be within, like I said, your relationships, it can be financial, all of these areas. There's an approach to being able to take the right steps. And this is where the life coaching really comes in, because like I said, a lot of times I think people are just letting life happen to them. And I had to learn through my experience that you do have control over certain elements of your life. And then if you actively, take control of those, then you're going to be able to get a better chance of the desired outcome that you're looking for. And I think that can help you get past some of that anxiety that people are facing. And then, another case is just like, and I do this a lot with others who are widows and widowers, who are relatively young, who really are saddened about the loss of their loved one. And there are certain things that this a gentleman in particular, who we talked about how important it is to journal and get your thoughts and emotions out about your former wife, and to be able to reflect on some of those good times. Sometimes we want to compartmentalize it and put it in a portion of our brain that is safe for us not to touch, because we don't get those sad emotions again. But we have to deal with that sadness. If it wasn't for the sadness, we wouldn't be able to experience joy and happiness to the fullest. So in unpacking some of those situations and actually having those discussions and putting it down on paper, so it isn't just cluttered in your mind, it helped him to be able to get through the grieving process and get out of that state of denial and into a place of acceptance. And then from there, being able to move forward with life and building the resilient skills and so on. So anyway, there's a couple of, I can keep going, but those are just two people in particular that I know have really been helped out by some of the support and coaching related to addressing the mental health and moving forward in life.
So but just to follow up on that, and I definitely would like to hear your opinion on this. Is you know, um, you know, as a black person in general, black people in general,
Mm-hmm.
there's always been these added stresses and pressures to us, regardless of the case. And it's always been these things where a lot of people didn't know what PTSD was, didn't know what these feelings were when they had anxiety. And then what do we have in 2020? We had COVID hit.
Right.
When COVID hit, and supposedly now that it's lightened over these last 3 to 4 years, you're starting to see more and more people that are being diagnosed with uh, all kinds of mental issues and from the mental capacity.
Yep.
And so the schizophrenia, the anxiety, the just uneasiness, just things that's just happening. And so, with it being something that we can look at, and if we wanted to put a picture on something, and we can just we can put the black people in general in this one box.
Yep.
And now starting to see that now we're starting to see all these that there are several different people that we would not have thought of before that are having these mental issues. What do you suggest that people start doing in order to bring that mental focus or that mental health back into shape and start working on it?
Well, I think the first thing you got to do is you just said it. You got to acknowledge it, and you got to seek the right help, not just help or advice from people, but help and insight from those who are experts in this space. Because a lot of times, and so look, uh, I grew up in Alabama, like I said, very spiritual upbringing. But one of the worst things that I think we as Black folks do is we say this thing where you just go pray about it and
Go
it's
to
gonna
church.
go away. And nah. You look, faith without works is dead. You not only got to pray about it, which we should do. Don't get me wrong, but you also got to do something. You can't just sit up here and think that all of these crazy thoughts you having in your head are just gonna magically disappear because you talk to God about it. God probably told you you need to see somebody who can help you, diagnose and understand these because you don't have that understanding yourself. And I think when we keep these, when we suppress some of these thoughts and feelings that we're having and try to ignore them and keep going on, we're just making it worse. And I think one of the best things that people can do is find that good life coach, that good psychologist, that good counselor who can at least give you an avenue to present a couple of things from a different perspective. I think sometimes we're all victims of our own um, our own ability to know it all. Like we know how to do everything, and sometimes that keeps us from being able to go to the right people and ask help. And I ain't saying just I, I had to learn through my journey. Everybody's advice is not good for you. You're gonna have your kin folks. You're gonna have your uncle who don't know a damn thing about what he's talking about, but gonna tell you what you need to do with your situation. And I think that's problematic. When you get an input with no expertise, you are asking for something bad to happen. And so, I definitely think that if we want to grow out of these situations where our mental health can hold us hostage, we need to seek the right help that can actually help us and not hinder us from being able to heal.
Yes, sir. I'm with you on that. What do you believe are the biggest misconceptions about mental health in our society?
The biggest misconceptions about mental health. Um, I honestly, I think the biggest misconception is the fact that some people think that they don't need it. And I think we all need to at least get some level of counseling. If it's for nothing else, just to verify that we good where we are and that we're thinking and approaching things in the right way. I think that's what I think the biggest thing that people need to think. I think you got people out here who are who will judge and talk and say something about everybody else, but they afraid to stand in front of the mirror and look at themselves and identify their own flaws. And so when you are that person, you are probably the person who needs to go and get some help because you know, if you think your crap don't stink and it really does, you might need to have somebody to point that out to you. But no, we all are working and fighting and striving as individuals, but sometimes we don't do what we need to in order to start addressing those things and really getting that holistic assessment of our life. Life is not just about your career, what you do, your job. It isn't just about, your immediate family and what you're doing at home. We have so many different elements of who we are, from a mental capacity standpoint, from education standpoint, from our spirituality, from the way that we view things such as legacy, how we interact with not only our immediate family, but everybody else in this world. All of these things are areas of life that we need to be able to understand where we are in those conditions of life. And these are what make up who we truly are. And sometimes we get so focused in our job, or we get so focused in being a good parent, that we neglect, our health. And all of this is necessary in order for us to live happy and fulfilled lives. And I think there's a lot of people out there who don't really understand how happy they can be. And if you tap into that mental health piece, you probably will be able to get a clearer picture of what happiness truly looks like.
I tell you, that man in the mirror, when you look at him, don't just look at him. You need to make sure you know who he is.
Exactly. Yep.
Because if you don't know who he is, then you need to go and get some help finding out.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you got to face him. How do you stay motivated and positive when facing challenging situations in your own life?
Good question. So I think that I've gone through a shift in approach in life overall, based on what I've experienced. And there's an element of having, just being grateful to be here. That level of gratitude and finding something to be positive about every day, I think, is so important, because it sets the tone, it sets the mood for how we're going to approach the things that come up in our day. The other key part of it too is the perspective on when things happen. Like I said earlier, I look at challenges and obstacles as a opportunity to figure out something new, to grow, to find solutions to problems, especially when there's something that you have direct influence and control over. Then sometimes we need to be the ones responsible in order to figure out how to save ourselves and resolve the challenges that we face. And so, I think that you learn a lot about who people are based on how they deal with adversity. It's not the adversity, but it's your reaction to that adversity that's going to determine how you move forward in life. And so I think that realizing that, okay, things are going to go wrong, things are going to happen, but can you stop and process, okay, what can I learn as a result of this? And also, what action can I take to get through this situation and be better? That goes back to the resiliency piece, but it's something that I think is so critical. And like I said, I take this as part of my life every day. This is who I am now. And so, when things don't go my way, I understand that there's got to be a way to be able to, respond in a positive manner in order to overcome what I'm facing. So, but I don't think everybody knows to look at it that way. And don't get me wrong, I don't think every situation is going to always be something where it's going to end up positive. Life is a roller coaster. It's going to have its ups and downs. But my goal is that those ups and despite those downs, to keep trending upward in the midst of it. Limit how low those lows go, and let's see what we can do to make the highs be as high as possible. But overall, if we're moving up in the right direction, then we are becoming better versions of ourselves in our life.
So people can understand, what is it that makes you stay so motivated and positive? Can you tell us one word that makes you stay that way?
One word that makes me stay that way.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Consistency creates success. And so if we want to keep going we got to understand that we've got to be consistent. In going through my recovery, I realized how important it was for me to start establishing the right habits. If I wanted to walk again, I actually had to do, certain exercises on a regular basis to get my core back to a place where I could do that. And that led to me being able to do more and more and more things. And I realized that part of that was just doing it consistently. So find that one thing. Ooh, I got a second word. I'm sorry, CZ, and I use this in one of my talks. But the second one is obsession. Find something that's going to be that you are just have that laser-like focus towards, and you're just obsessed at in order to keep you going. It may be, being an expert in a certain area. It may be, going to work out every day. It may be being a thought leader and a prominent expert in, matters here in America in black and white. It could be something, but don't just do it, but do it at a high level to where when somebody or other things are happening that you question, you feel like, okay, no, I know this, I can do it better, or I am going to know it better so I can be that person. If you have that obsession, it's going to get you more motivated and focused towards reaching whatever goals and overcoming the obstacles that you face in life.
You know what word I thought you was gonna use?
What's that?
I thought you was gonna use your word for your business,
Yep,
resilience.
yep. That was, the funny thing about it is I use that word so often and it all comes back to that. But I want to make sure that people see that there are certain other elements that help push you in that same direction. But yeah, being able to come to terms with and cope with what you're facing, that being able to bounce back, that is all about being resilient. But these are some intricate details as part of what can keep you being more resilient. So I'm with you. That is my word.
Can you share a key piece of advice you often give to individuals looking to improve their mental well-being?
Yeah. Um, you hear people talk about how important self-care is and being able to do, things in order to restore themselves. I think that is so critical. I think that's so important. And I think when you are one of these people who are constantly doing things or constantly doing for others, it is so easy to neglect yourself. And I think that is one of the problems that so many, high performing, ambitious people with big ideas have, is that you're constantly doing things to make it better for other people or to help others, but you're not really figuring out what it is you like to do and doing it for yourself. So I think that from a mental health standpoint, one of the best things you can possibly do is, take a moment to write down what it is that you like to do for yourself in order to bring you peace, in order to stimulate your mind, and in order to feel good about yourself. You can do those things. And then going back to that other word, consistency. If you can do those on a more consistent basis, you're going to be better emotionally, mentally, if it's health related, physically. And so there are so many things that can be accomplished by going about and making sure that you are taking the time for yourself.
So tell us this. How has your own life-changing event shaped the way you approach your work today?
So going back to the fact that, I'm not even supposed to be here, at least I could very easily not be here, helps me to be able to learn a level of empathy towards what others are facing. And in going through what I went through, I also think that it has allowed me to be able to really share with others how they feel, especially if they've gone through the loss of a close loved one and they feel like nobody understands what I'm like. I know what it's like to go through that pain, that hurt, that loss, and to be able to move through these phases of grief. If I hadn't experienced what I hadn't, I couldn't talk about what I've gone through. But there is something key about the experiential learning that we have in life, the things that we go through, and especially when we go and look at the lessons that we gain, because it's not all about showing people the right way to get through things. It's also about identifying those pitfalls that people don't know to look out for and helping them avoid those things. So, in the midst of what I've gone through, I've embodied this level of experience and understanding to help people navigate through those difficult times, especially when you're dealing with loss. You're not thinking clearly. You having that helping hand to walk with is one of the things that I think that going through what I've gone through can really help people out.
Mm. So, in your opinion, what role does self-care play in maintaining good mental health?
Look, I tell you, I'm one of those people who I go work out in the gym at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And what that does is it helps me get this level of stress off of myself physically so I can think clearly going through the rest of the day. I think that being able to that's a means of self-care for me, but it also serves as a means of being able to limit how much it's almost preparation for what I'm going to have to face during the day. So it helps me to be in a good state of mind to deal with whatever's going to pop up. And so yeah, so I definitely think that that element of self-care is doing something that actually makes me feel better. It helps me mentally to be able to, and plus I look at it as a time, when people do that, and I'm just speaking on from my perspective, it gives you a time to sort of, zone out, meditate, and think through things that you might not think through if you're already going into your busy day. I use some of that time to just get my own thoughts together for how I want to approach certain challenges, or really a time to myself to mentally be able to figure out, how I'm going to strategize through some of the things that may pop up. So I think that all of that leads to self-care, and people can have their own means of doing what they want to do. Some people just like, just relaxing, watching a movie. Take the time to do that for yourself if that's what you need to do, because we need to disconnect from all the pressures that life is putting on us at some point in time. We need to find the things that we like to do that can bring us, as I said earlier, that peace, that comfort, and allow us to be who we really are. So self-care is critical. It's so critical. We a lot of us have go buttons, but we don't have a pause button. And so we need to figure out how to do that. And then when we do it, to be able to take the time for ourselves to actually recover and restore ourselves.
So, what are some practical tips you can offer to our listeners for managing stress and anxiety?
So I think one of the most important things that I ended up doing, and it actually worked out for me pretty well. Um, when I was in a state where I was shortly after the accident and I couldn't physically do a lot, I had a journal, and I was never a writer, but I started writing to get the thoughts out of my head and on paper. These were me dealing with my emotions. These were talking about my former wife. This was me trying to just figure out, what things I was going to have to deal with after I got to a point where physically I could move again. Journaling became very powerful for me, and it led to me writing my first book, because I started getting some of these, detailed aspects of what I was going through out there on paper. It helped me. It helped me with my grieving process, and it helped me picture how some elements of my life were going to need to come together. So I definitely think that that is one of the best things you can do if you're really going through it, and maybe you need some help figuring out what you're going to write about, the thoughts that you're going to get out of your head. But I definitely think that doing that gives you the opportunity to start truly assessing what battles you're facing and what you're dealing with in your life. So, and like I said, it gets back to a moment of being able to take time to yourself to understand your thoughts and get the things that's in your head out on paper.
Okay. And so, how do you incorporate mindfulness practices into your daily routine?
So, I do meditate in the morning most of the time. I don't do it all the time, but I do before I really get up and out of bed. I just take some time to visualize what a good day looks like for me. I think that is a good mindful practice that everybody doesn't do. But what I realized is in going through these things, as I said earlier, everywhere you got in life, your mind got there first. You have to visualize certain things, and when you're not taking the time to visualize what success looks like, what a good day looks like, then it's a little harder to accept those good things as they come about, but deal with the bad things. I think that in doing so, it prepares me, it calms me, and it allows me to sort of, like I said, visualize where I'm going before I actually get there. So it's certain things that we have to do every day, and we know what we got. But instead of just attacking it, having that moment to really be at peace and think about, okay, if I accomplish this, this, and this, I've won for the day. before you even start your day. And that'll make it a little bit. I mean, people, I do this myself. I have to-do lists. I write a lot of things down, but I think that having that moment of peace where you're just thinking about it before you're even doing that is a good step in being able to lessen that level of anxiety a little bit and get clarity on what you need to do for yourself. And that clarity is going to lead to being able to better deal with the mental health challenges as they pop
Now,
up.
so I want to follow up on that is because now I myself I do mindfulness classes, and the reason why I do them is I've done them in the past, and you're right about one thing because it does help to alleviate the stress.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say it alleviates the stress, I mean it really alleviates the stress because it helps me to stay focused and to stay clear, and to just to move the way I need to move and just keep everything, just from a practical standpoint, just in order. And so I stopped taking the classes like for a period of like maybe like 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, and kind of like it's like I lost my way.
Yeah.
And so it was like I was beginning to become a mess.
Yeah.
And so now I take the classes again, but it's helping me to get that back because mindfulness is really powerful. And I think for those that have not taken a class or understand how to meditate,
Yeah.
um, everybody I think needs to learn that to some extent because I even got to the point that I was even doing yoga.
Me too. I've been there. I've done it too. So no, I'm with you. And I think the one key thing that you said there is that, you said that things were becoming a mess when you stopped it
Right,
and you need to get back to it. But for those who have never done it before, you don't realize how much of a mess you really are.
right.
When you see the impact of actually doing it and how it can lower that stress, how it can give you focus and clarity, I think it becomes, that's one of those, it opens your eyes to really, what is going on in my life. And so, no, I'm a big believer that that's something that's important to incorporate. And like I said, I never would have done anything like that had I been living my old life, or I might have, but it wouldn't have been the same. But
Mhm.
now knowing how important it is, it's hard to imagine living without it because we are a mess to begin with. And
Okay.
we take these actions to try to get it under control. We're just trying to minimize how much of a mess we are. But woo, some of the folks, some of us, if we are so cluttered and so all over the place and so unorganized and you know and and our mentals can really impact us in a difficult way if we don't realize that these are the type of things that we can do in order to better manage that stress.
Yes. What do you believe are the most important factors contributing to mental resilience?
The most important factors contributing to mental resilience. I'm big on um, just the awareness that you have to be mentally strong in order to be able to move forward. And some of us may not have that strength. And that's where actually doing the consistency, doing and being disciplined to do the things to build that mental resilience is so critical. Um, you have people who crumble as soon as something bad happens. They have breakdowns and they don't know how to bounce back from those breakdowns. Having mental resilience allows you to be able to process what's going on and understand the pros and cons of different reactions and then actually choosing the right actions to take before you actually start doing things. And I think that being able to control yourself, to be able to go about it in that approach is one of the things that's going to help you build that proper mental resilience. So I definitely think that um, finding that discipline, but also being able to create that or understand that awareness of who I am and where I am and how I need to move forward when things happen will boost that level of mental resilience that you face. And so,
So, can you share a story of a person whose life you've helped transform through your motivational speaking and mental health advocacy?
Yeah. It's this one lady who I know she was bipolar to begin with, and she lost her husband. He um, had a sudden heart attack. Young lady was in her mid 40s, and she did not know how she was going to move forward. They had kids. She was, like I said, um, going through challenges to begin with, and then just wanted to give up. I've talked to people who have strongly considered suicide because they just don't want to keep trying to fight. And so to be able to talk to her and have her, share some of her biggest fears and concerns and talk through solutions on why she didn't have to be so afraid of what life was going to become, was one of the most fulfilling things, because she got to a place where, even though things weren't perfect, but being able to get some additional help in order to control the bipolar personality and be able to figure out how she wanted to move forward in her career so she could make sure that she was providing for her kids and getting past the heartbreak. So, I think everybody's journey is different in life as a whole. That's just given. But to help people to not stray too far off of their pathway and help pull them back so they can walk that path that's intended for them is really where I think the help has come in. And she was somebody who, I think she was going off in left field had we not started working together and be able to sort of get her mind back in a safe, in a stable place, for her to be able to still function properly in life.
So, is she functioning kind of, well, very fluidly now?
She's, let's say, it's better. She's doing better. Um, Still some work we got to do still, but to be able to see where she was headed and where she was versus where she is now, that's great progress. It's significant progress. So, still got some work to do, and she knows this. But we're moving in the right direction, and I can see that she's processed the grief of her loss fairly well now. And at first, it was just a bunch of tears and a bunch of sadness. And how am I going to move forward? And I don't even want to live. And this, so we're past all of that. And so now there's an optimistic view on how am I going to take control of what life has to offer my future. And that is a good attitude to have. So,
So, how do you balance the emotional toll of supporting others
hmm.
with your own well being?
so this is this is a challenge I had to face earlier on as a coach, because you want to be able to help people and you think, okay, well, let me just keep going and going. But what I found is that, I have to be able to rejuvenate myself. I have to be able to recover. It is emotionally draining to be supporting people all the time. So you can't just pour out of your cup all the time. So I make sure at least one that I keep breaks between meeting with individuals or groups and all, because I incorporate in my day times where I'm just gonna chill. I'm just gonna, watch a little TV or do a little something or read something that I'm just gonna sort of not have to really think about all the problems that I'm trying to help others solve, because those are ways. And then, like, I have my own things that I enjoy doing, and like, I like a good cigar lounge. I will go and chill and do that, and be able to really be able to sort of just disconnect from everything that's going on. So we got to have our things that allow us to be able to separate when we're giving so much, and those are ways in which we can, be able to rebuild ourselves so we can be better for those who we're trying to serve.
Mm. What strategies do you use to maintain a positive mindset during challenging times?
Ooh. Strategies to maintain a positive mindset. Well, I look at where I was and where I am and where I'm trying to go. And when I look back and see where I really was in a truly broken state and see the progress that I've made and understand that I still have so much more to go, that gives me, that positive outlook at, okay, just keep going. I'm helping people. I'm doing something I enjoy and love. And I feel like that I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. That there is so many more people and so much change and impact I can make. That gives me a positive outlook on life and on things. Now don't get me wrong, I have my challenges as well, but like I said, I try to frame or reframe as many of the situations as, well, what am I going to gain out of this, and how is this going to make me better, and what can I learn from this that I can use to help other people. So when you look at things, when you ask the right questions that can make a bad situation look better, I think that helps you to keep a positive attitude towards what you're facing.
Oh, that's wonderful. So like to follow up on that, like let's say the situation with you working with your clients. And so has there ever been a point that to clarify situations to visual so they can have a better visual, has there been a point that you had to go a little bit deeper and deeper for them to actually answer the questions to understand what's
Yep,
happening?
yep. I think, as a coach or as anybody who counsels others, um, you have to break past the surface level stuff. You have to break past that, and sometimes I think that the people who we work with, um, they don't feel comfortable initially going there, and but that's where I think being able to see how people think, and that's one thing that I think I've learned a lot better than who I was before. Trying to read and understand what people are really trying to say without saying it. And sometimes you just need to ask that right question to get them to start talking about it. And then that helps open the floodgates as to, what's going on and why and what's the obstacle that's keeping us from being able to get to where we need to. So, so ultimately, getting to your question, I think that understanding that we have to sometimes, you know, pull a little stuff a little more out of people and asking those questions to be able to dig deeper helps gives us better understanding as to how we're going to find a solution to the problems that they're facing.
How do you see the landscape of mental health awareness and support evolving in the coming years?
I do think that that as a society we are finally embracing mental health as a real issue, as a real problem. We're seeing so many things that are troubling to us. I think when you start to see, some of these school shootings and people that just go crazy and just, these things are showing that there are battles that people are dealing with, and sometimes the signs may be there, sometimes it's not, but that we can do some things to at least start to attack a problem um, once we see some of those indicators. That's an extreme case. But I think when we look at how we interact in the world and where some people struggle with it, I think those are some of the indicators that, okay, this person needs to see somebody as far as mental health goes. I do like the fact that a lot of uh, corporations, they actually put budget into employee assistance programs and are starting to encourage, having, mental wellness days and being able to let people actually, see a therapist or a counselor to start talking about certain elements. And I think that the more that this becomes the norm, the better off we're going to be as a society, because we're going to learn how to process our emotions and handle dysfunction when it pops up in our life a little bit better. I think overall, for as far as us as Black people, I think it's becoming more and more uh, less taboo to actually talk to somebody outside of your immediate family. about what's going on. And so I think that as we continue to do more of that, we'll be able to have a more stable um, overall mental health uh, as a group. Yeah.
So, can you discuss the importance of destigmatizing mental health issues in our society?
Yeah, I think it's very important to do that. And one of the things that I pride myself on is just being vulnerable as a black man, because it's not, you don't see that every day. And I understand that if I'm open and willing to share some of the the thoughts of depression that I had, some of the pain that I faced, and how addressing my mental health helped me to be able to regain control of my life again, it'll make that next person who's thinking about it but not actually doing anything to take that first step. And I think that we can the stigma is, okay, if you cry then that's a sign of weakness, or if you say too much, then you're putting too much out there, and people are going to attack you for all that. Look, the more we can grow comfortable with who we are and have the focus on becoming a better person and less on what these other people who probably don't care about you are saying and thinking of, or what you think that they're thinking about you, is the more we can get past that, the better off we're going to be as a collective group of individuals. And I think that getting past that, uh, like I said, the being a black male and being honest about what I'm feeling and how my emotions are and how I've addressed certain elements in my life that haven't gone the right way. This is going to make it easier for more and more people to take that first step and say, okay, I need to talk to somebody. And if we're doing that, then we are getting better as a society.
So, what do you think about as you were saying about how people like put this stigma, on mental health, but just in general, when you have people, it doesn't matter if it's male or female, but when they start to just let it be known that they just don't like this or they don't like that,
Mhm.
and and how it makes them feel. But you have some people that just say, well, that's on you, and they keep going and they're still doing the same thing that's triggering,
Yeah.
people. And so my thing is, I know that some people say that, I mean, well, the way it's put out in society is that people are allowed to say whatever it is that they want to say. But there is always cause, effect, and consequences.
Hmm.
So, like with somebody that's actually on a hair trigger and they're already fragile, how should people, well, just in the individuals that run across people like this just out
Yeah.
in the public, how should they handle situations like that?
Well, I say this. I'm a big person on energy and what I'm feeling from other people. And if you can, disassociate yourself from that as much as possible, because you don't want to feed any of that into you. Now we don't always have the luxury of being able to avoid confrontation or conflict or conversation with other people who are like this. But I think the most important thing is to be clear and mindful of who you are and how you're going to respond or react to what other people are doing. You can either be provoked into, you know, responding back in a negative way, or you can learn to be able to say, okay, I disagree, or learn to be the for lack of a better term, be the bigger man, be the bigger person, and not escalate any issues when you've got these people who are um, probably truly really looking for this is sort of a cry for help, but they don't know how to process it. They don't know how to verbalize it or articulate it. And
Mhm.
so, one of the things that I point out, and I think this is clear, is that anger masks a lot of emotions.
Oh, wow.
And so you have people who are going through a lot of different things, but the only thing that they know how to put it out there is to be mad, or to put it on somebody else, or it's somebody else's fault. And so I think this is where we really gotta, when you can recognize that this is misplaced aggression, that is actually a sign of something else going on. They're not really mad at me, but they're mad at something, and that there's something else going on, and they're just covering it by this level of hostility or anger that they're putting out there.
What are some common barriers that prevent individuals from seeking help for their mental health?
I think this is good. So I think there are financial barriers. People think that they don't have it in their budget to be able to do it. But I say, if you can go get your gym membership, you need to go get you a counselor. If you can, allocate some funds for that, you just like you work out your triceps and your biceps, you need to go work out your brain and your emotions. So I think that's one element there. Another one is our ego. And it goes
Mm,
back to that whole thing of us thinking that we know more than what we really do. And we are too prideful to get help. Or we're either getting help from people who are going to tell us what we want to hear. And so
mhm.
both of those are dangerous, because when you got a blind man leading another blind man, where the hell they going to go?
No, okay, that ain't going nowhere fast.
Yep, exactly. So I think that when you can get past that, and then you start to realize that, okay, I do need some help. I do need to take some actions to beyond what I've been doing thus far. And look, life is hard. Life is hard enough on our own when we're trying to figure it all out in our own heads. But if you don't have those trusted people, resources that can help you make sense of it, you're destined to have challenges and make it harder than it has to be.
How do you think we can better integrate mental health education into our communities and institutions?
I think doing stuff like what we're doing right now. I think people seeing, the others talking about it. My hope is that, somebody who has been thinking about it, who's watching this right now, is going to say, I'm going to take some action. They're either going to get in touch with you, CZ, or they're going to get in touch with me, or they're going to get in some touch with somebody and say, okay, I heard this guy talking about how important my mental health is, and I need to talk to somebody. I think those are the type of things that we can do. I think that, I know that the church that I go to, they've started a grief support program. These are things to help people who are, really struggling with getting past that loss of a loved one. I think that these are things that can be done in the community to make it easier for those who are truly seeking help but don't want to come out and look for it, to feel more comfortable with some of the constructs created for them to be able to learn and be able to share what they're going through. Um, I do like the fact that we're starting to see more and more, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of employers are giving employees the opportunity to explore means of being able to talk to somebody. This is a good thing. Do we take advantage of it? I don't think enough people take advantage of it, but at least we've got a start of people doing that. And then you're seeing a lot of from the social media standpoint, you're seeing a lot of good, I think, really high quality psychiatrists and coaches giving tips and insight to I do it myself through my audience, and for those who find that right person for them to listen to, then they're starting to get some tips and strategies that they can apply in their life. It might be a little bit at a time, but if you're taking the time to pay attention, there's some good information out there that can help you. So I think these are ways for us as communities, as societies as a whole, to be able to start taking the right steps moving forward from a mental health perspective.
So, last question. What message of hope or inspiration would you like to leave our listeners with today?
So if you see my journey and where I was and where I've come from to where I am now, then I want you to know that no matter how big the obstacle or challenge that you're facing, there is a way to overcome it, a way to move forward. And by choosing to be resilient, you can change your life. So take that as as a challenge. If you feel that you've got challenges in front of you that you don't know how you're gonna choose resilience, and I am a champion and someone who embodies resilience. And if anybody needs to learn on how they can apply that in their lives, then I'm not that hard to find. I'm all over the place, or at least want to be, and I can help people find that resilience in their lives to be able to really regain control of their life and live a life that brings them more satisfaction, more fulfillment, and to really move forward and feel better about themselves.
So people that'll be looking for you, and if they wanted to contact you, how would they look you up, and how can they contact you?
You can find me all over LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram under my name, Tiran Jackson, or Tiran Jackson Official. And if you really want to reach out to me, you can visit my site, rebornresilient.com. You go there, there's information about some of the things that I do to help people from a speaking perspective, some of my messages, as well as being able to book a session for us to just be able to talk. And I learned a little bit more about what you're wanting to accomplish in your life. So if you visit rebornresilient.com, that is an easy place to be able to find me. And then there's a gift there. If you go there, you can get one of my tools, the 9 steps to finding resilience in your life, 9 ways to build resilience. So I invite you to visit rebornresilient.com, or either follow me or find me on LinkedIn or Instagram, and we can start the conversation on how you can make resilience be the key to finding the success you're looking for in your life.
So are there any other platforms or any other things you got going on that people should be checking out?
Yeah. So a couple of things that I've got going on. I've got a uh, a series of episodes coming up. If you follow my Instagram, you'll see it. But myself and then this other brother who is a clinical psychologist, where we're doing a deep dive into certain elements of mental health and trauma, being able to get into masculinity, manhood, being able to understand how to realize and counter depression, and just throwing some real life examples and insight out there through our experiential journey. So if you're looking at that, that's called defining moments, resilience, reliance, and self-realization. So we're going to be doing that for the next couple of weeks. So you can find me. That's free online, or you can find me. I also got a number of different organizations and companies that I'm speaking to. So I put those things out on my social media quite a bit. And then also I'm putting together a workshop. And my biggest platform or program is called Happily Ever Interrupted. And it's for those who life was going a certain way, and then all of a sudden something happened, and you don't know how to be able to get to that place of equilibrium, to restabilize your life again. This is going to be a workshop. I do it live in Atlanta, but I also doing it online. It's coming up in July, where I will be working with people, showing you some of the most critical elements of being able to not just overcome the trauma and tragedy that you face, but to learn how to build resilience and then redefine your life after tragedy. So if this is of interest, if you know that you are going through some things and you just want to get some clarity on how to get through it, I advise you to be on the lookout for that coming up mid-July.
Well, I just want to say 2 things. First thing is this, in closing, is I did not know you were from Alabama until just now. What part of Alabama are you from?
I'm from this small town, Florence, Alabama.
I know where Florence is. I was
Okay.
actually born and raised in Mobile.
Oh, for real? Okay, okay, yeah. Oh, at the end of the state. I got you. Yep, yep. I love it.
So that's another wonderful thing. Again, I told you that's divine intervention. But I want to thank each and every individual that has tuned in tonight, and to get the message that that Tyron has put out, because His story is one that we all should look to go inside of ourselves to pull that inner strength to make sure that we do survive, either have that will to survive.
Yeah.
Those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel, please hit the subscription button and the notify bell that's right next to it. So every time we do a show, you guys can get the notification if you don't catch it live. So you always know it's there. And I want to thank you again, Tyron, for actually taking time out your busy day to spend with myself and the guests, and and give us these wonderful stories. Give us this wonderful story, but also to give us this knowledge of what it is to want to be resilient, because resilience is the key.
That's
I
right.
thank you all for joining us tonight. Please join us tomorrow as we have another wonderful show. And we will see you guys then tomorrow. Have a nice day, and thank you all.